So, guys, today we're going to cover something that I know everybody in the fishing world can use. Some people know about it, some people don't. I've covered bits and pieces of it through other videos I've done. So today I'm just going to put it in a simpler form, and that leads us to the description of the video. What are 5 things that you can find along a mangrove shoreline that will give you, the angler, indicators that there may be fish there? Simple? No. But once you know what you're doing, yeah. Most people, pass it all the time. There's these little indicators that tell you where the fish should be. Not saying everybody, but some do. I've watched people do it. I've watched, other boats come by and go right past it. Kayakers go past it. Even waders go past the areas that we're about to discuss. So with that being said, we'll start it off with number 1. The obvious. If you're walking down a mangrove shoreline and you see the shoreline and you see there's a couple of guts and there's a couple of cuts, maybe a point or two, some overhanging mangrove, maybe a little bit of clump oyster. Okay, those are all obvious. All right, and those we know. Okay, yeah, let's hit those. Those look great. But it's the small things that sometimes hold the biggest fish, and I'm going to give you number 1 of 5. So here we go. The first thing you're looking for when you're walking along a mangrove line, look for disturbances in the water. Now we're heading into the spring and summer months. Okay, we're going to have a lot higher tides, so a lot of the fish that are wandering on those outer flats because the water is cooler, they want to heat up during the day, are now going to push up against the mangroves. Why? It's simple. The bait is going to move in with the tide, and those smaller crustaceans and smaller baits and smaller crab need somewhere to hide. And where are they going to hide? Inside those mangrove roots and underneath oyster. It's very simple. So knowing that, what you need to do while walking that mangrove line, look for small disturbances. So if you're walking along the line and you happen to see a couple of little, shrimp or a couple of little greenbacks, go and just blow up a little bit, but not a lot, just a little blow up. That doesn't mean there's going to be a 40-inch snook there or a 35-inch red, but it could mean that there is a game fish nearby causing a disturbance. So if you happen to be walking and you see a quick disturbance in the water, throw your bait. It's not going to hurt. Doesn't mean you're going to catch, that fish, that monster snook or redfish or sea trout or tarpon. But there could be a fish holding there. It's an indicator that there may be a fish there, even if it's the slightest little disturbance in the water. And a lot of people walk past that. They may see a little flicker of a shrimp or catch a little pinfish, flip on the top of the water, and they don't throw at it. I throw at every target I see. Every target, everything that makes a movement on the water is a possibility that there could be a fish lurking beneath it. That's number 1. Number 2, wind. Huge factor. Winter, spring, summer, fall, wherever you're from, wind. Now, 9 out of 10 times, I like to fish wind-blown shorelines. I'll repeat that. Wind-blown shorelines. And the reason why I like to fish those is A, everything's getting blown towards those mangroves. Okay, and if you're fishing a wind-blown shoreline on an incoming tide, the water is going to be a lot higher, okay, and it's going to be a lot more pressure in the water pushing bait into those spots where they can hide. And you know what's going to follow them. Redfish, snook, sometimes sea trout. Now, for the sea trout, a lot more in the wintertime where they're going to be hugging up towards those mangroves. I see more of them in the winter against the mangroves here in Southwest Florida. In other areas, it may be different. In the summertime, I'm going to see bigger trout up on the open flats. In the wintertime, they'll hug that skinny water for some reason or another. I've been catching a lot of them in 6 to 12 to 20 inches of water, very, very close to the shorelines. Quite unusual, but that's where they've been. Usually you think they're going to be out in the open water sunning themselves, but a lot of the big ones have been close to the shore this year. So wind is a major factor. If you have a wind-blown shoreline, okay, if you're working an island or working a mangrove system, and you can walk to both sides of it, and if you have a wind-blown side here, and this side is not wind-blown, I would hit the wind-blown side first if you have access to it. Always hit the wind-blown, or at least try to. I find there's more success against the wind-blown side. So this is going to lead us to indicator number 3, birds. Now everyone thinks birds. What do you mean birds? Diving birds, cormorants. Yeah, we all know that when they're out in the open. No, what I'm talking about is when you're walking along a mangrove line and you see nothing here, nothing there, nothing there, nothing there, but that one area of mangrove shoreline, and there's 5 or 10 birds right there, and they're just hanging out. They're not actively diving and pecking away at the water, but they're hanging out there. They're waiting for something. That may be an indicator that there's a drop off there. So when that water starts to fill up, there's going to be fish piling into a hole, small bait fish, which again is going to attract more game fish. So if you see an area and you have an incoming tide and you're beating the bushes against the mangroves, and you happen to come across an area where there's a lot of birds, don't forget about that area. You may have to wait, an hour for that water to come in, fish around it, in other areas, but come back to that area if you can. Once the water is up, chances are there's probably going to be a fish there. Number 4. And this one, I see it all the time. I see it everywhere, whether I'm on the kayak, whether I'm on the boat, whether I'm waiting. I see it with clients. I see it by myself, especially when I go to a new area that I haven't been to. I come across it all the time. You'll walk an area and you'll just walk along, shoreline, and you'll happen to see a lure in a tree, maybe 1 lure, maybe 2. Sometimes you'll come across a point and there'll be 5 lures, all types of, braids stuck up in the mangroves and leader line. And of course, I do my best to clean it up. I do take the lures. I'm not going to tell you, if I see a brand new lure in the tree, it's going in my pocket. I clean it up the best as I can. Sometimes they're higher up and I can't get to them, unfortunately, but I clean up what I can find, and then I mark that spot as a hot spot. I put a pin on it in my phone, so I know to go back there and try it again. Chances are a spot like that has a lot of activity, and this is common knowledge, but some people just don't use it. They bounce around. You could be right in the right area the whole day, and just bypass it and think, wow, that's been hit so many times, there's no fish there. Yeah, that may be right. But if you get there at the right time of day, the fish may still come back there. You don't know what's there unless you fish it or walk it. Okay, you could walk there and the depth can go from 6 to 8 inches to all of a sudden 2 feet, and that could be a nice trough right there, and fish are going to line up there and use that as an ambush point. So don't forget that. If you see a spot on a flat, on a mangrove line outside of a flat, okay, and you're fishing the bushes, okay, and you see that there's lines, lures, fluorocarbon, up against it, stuck in the mangroves, that may be a spot that fish hold. It's just another indicator that something for you to throw your lure at. Number 4, very, very important, mullet. A lot of people know the game. It's nothing new. If you find mullet, usually you find redfish. Well, sometimes that's true, sometimes it isn't. I have found mullet and have found no redfish, but also have pulled 3 or 4 40-inch snook that were following them. Done the same thing, school of mullet, no snook, no redfish, but like 20 trout following the school. So you never know what's going to be around them. But I'm going to tell you what the reason is. The reason why that there's game fish around them. Those mullet are going to be coming up and down that mangrove system, and while they're doing that, they're eating the algae. As they're eating the algae, they're stirring up the bottom. Okay, they're stirring up little shrimp, little pinfish, mud crabs, blue crab, microorganisms. Well, the fish knows, they know this. The snook know it, the tarpon know it, the redfish know it, sea trout know it. So if you see a school that's moving slowly up a mangrove line, do not throw your lure into the school. Do not throw your lure in front of the school. Throw your lures, and try to do it quietly and as stealthy as possible, around that school of mullet that's moving up and down that system. It's just another indicator to help you find more fish. Is it going to guarantee you a fish every time? Absolutely not. It's going to give you a good chance of getting on a big fish? Absolutely so. So use that information because it does work. I have plenty of videos of you seeing me doing it on YouTube. And last but not least, I know you guys should have this in your mind already after watching me, for all this time. I'll give you a second to think about what number 5 is. Okay. Lure selection. And you say, what do you mean lure selection? How is that an indicator? Well, okay, I'm going to tell you why it's an indicator and why it's going to work for you. If you're going to be throwing a bait into the mangroves, you need to have that bait A, either stand out, B, match the profiles of the baits that are in there, and C, use a bait that's not going to get wrapped up in the mangroves, get stuck in an oyster, or get caught in a mangrove root. So what you want to do is keep a weedless application when you're throwing into mangroves. Okay, you want to primarily, if you can, match the hatch. If you have a lot of bait in the water, use colors that are going to stand out. So if you see tons of greenbacks, okay, and this particular part of this mangrove system, don't throw something that looks like a greenback. Throw something that's going to stand out, something with contrast. So when you put it into that group of greenbacks, your bait stands out from those baits, and what that's going to do is attract that predator to eat your bait and not go after the rest. It's not 100% guaranteed, but I will guarantee you this, it works, because I do it and I catch fish that way. So with that being said, I'm going to leave you with one more tip, because we're in a trend now, our warming trend, so take this one with you. Here's what you're going to need to do while you're out in the water right now. The temperature of the water has jumped up already now between 5 and 9 degrees over the last 2 weeks. Okay, we're in a transition period. All of the fish are coming out of the creeks, including the snook, including the redfish. The trout are going to be back up on the flats. The bait is starting to show up on the flats. Okay, so as the bait is showing up, okay, use a variety of baits. Don't just stick with a soft plastic or a spoon. Throw a top water, throw a jerk shad, throw a paddle tail, throw a jig, throw a weedless application. Change it up, okay? Every flat is different. Every situation is different. You may go to the flat on Monday and everything and its mother hits that DOA cal shad. And then you may go to the flat on Friday and nothing will touch the cal shad and everything will touch the LNL jerk shad or a new penny colored gulp jerk shad. You never know. That's why you experiment. That's why you see me with all those different types of baits. This way I have a little variety pack that I bring with me on every trip, which gives me an opportunity that I have every weapon in my arsenal for every situation. Okay, I at least have 2 baits for every situation that I could run into on the flats. Keep that in mind. Love you all. I got to get rolling. Thank you for liking, subscribing, and sharing, being a part of the Waist Deep family. Of course, anything we talk about, all the lures I use, all my sponsors, everything is linked in the description. All you have to do is click on it. Then it'll bring you to their website. If you like what you see, order one for yourself. They work. I use them. You see they work. If you'd like to book a trip with me, all you have to do is click on my link in the description. Give me a call. We'll set up a date. We'll get out there, you and I, and we'll get wade fishing together. I'll teach you some of my secrets. Till then, see you in the next video. Love you all. Mwah. See ya.